I'd like to welcome everybody to the first in a series of quarterly sustainability webinars sponsored by the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources and its Green Tier program, the Sustainable Green Printing Partnership, SGIA, Flexographic Technical Association, the Tag and Label Manufacturers Institute, and the Great Lakes Graphics Association. I don't know why this isn't advancing. There we go. Again, we appreciate all of the individual sponsoring organizations. And again, we'll be talking a little bit about how you can become more involved in both Green Tier and the Sustainable Green Printing Partnership at the end of the webinar. I'm the moderator. I'm Joe Lyman. I'm president of the Great Lakes Graphics Association. And a little bit about the webcast logistics. Before we get started, I want to mention a few housekeeping items. We mute everybody we're able to mute to avoid unnecessary background noise, and questions can always be asked at the end of the webinar. If somebody wants to ask a question immediately, they can use the chat feature on the right-hand side frame of the program, and I will unmute myself to ask the questions to be presented to the presenters. If you have a problem with audio, please dial in via phone. This is the best possible way to get a great audio connection. And again, this webinar is going to be recorded and be provided to all the registered in the next few days, probably by not later than Friday. But today, I'd like to welcome Erica Klutmeyer, the Sustainability Advisor for Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Green Tier Program, Gary Jones, Environmental Health and Safety Affairs for SGIA, Heather Allen, Program Director for Renew Wisconsin, and Mac Jepinski of Sunpeak. The panel of experts will prevent saving dollars in 2019, operating costs with renewable energy. And welcome, Erica, Gary, Heather, and Mac.
Hello, good morning, everyone. This is Gary Jones with SGIA. I have the pleasure of kicking us off with our program. As Joe had mentioned, our focus for today's program is on renewable energy. First, what we'd like to do, though, is spend a little bit of time talking about the Sustainable Green Printing Partnership, and after I'm done, you'll hear from Erica, who's going to talk about the Green Tier program. These are two programs, of course, that are near and dear to our hearts with respect to sustainability. And Joe had, I think, had mentioned briefly that one of the projects that we're working on, we have a joint project working with the Wisconsin DNR that falls under a charter where we've made agreements and have come together with the DNR to focus on sustainability, regulatory issues, and other items of interest to both the DNR and the printing industry. And really what cropped out of this, as you'll see as we move on, is a strong relationship between the Sustainable Green Printing Partnership and the Green Tier program. So a little bit about the Sustainable Green Printing Partnership. First and foremost, it's an independent nonprofit certification organization, and really, what was the purpose really of SGP was really designed to answer the basic question: what makes a green printing operation? And from that very simple question emerged this program, where in essence, as this program was put together, and SGIA was one of the founding partners of the SGP program, was to make sure that we had a credible system to identify sustainable green printing or graphic arts operations. Very important from a supply chain perspective and also from a marketing perspective. If you're a company that wants to identify themselves as a sustainable green printing operation, you need to have some credentials behind that. So in essence, really is a certification program, and it's a holistic approach. Most importantly, it covers the entire business operation from soup to nuts, so to speak. It deals with the manufacturing operations. It focuses on how you manage your facility. It looks at energy efficiency. It looks at air pollution emissions and opportunities for improvements and opportunities for reduction. There's a publicly vetted set of criteria. So in other words, there is a defined set of activities and items that certified facilities must meet. And as I said, we deal with the manufacturing. And there's also, because sustainability involves the three pillars of people, planet, profit, and there's also a social responsibility aspect involved with the SGP program as well. And then, of course, to have ultimate credibility, there's a third-party audit required for certification. So a facility would put together their program to meet the criteria. They actually have an independent third-party auditor that comes in and actually confirms that the facility is doing what they said they're doing and meeting the criteria. So again, that adds that layer of credibility, which is critically important in today's marketplace. Next slide, please. Benefits. Well, the Sustainable Green Printing Partnership brings a lot of benefits to those companies that are engaged and involved in the program becoming certified. As we mentioned, it meets customer demands for supply chain sustainability requirements. And as this concept grows, there's more and more brands that are demanding from their supply chain certifications, certifications and assurances might be the best way to say it, that in fact these facilities are doing things in a sustainable fashion. And I would say because of the issues that we're experiencing, like for example with the China Blue Sky Initiative, where they've stopped requesting or stopped importing a lot of waste, we've seen an exasperation of this, and you have a lot of brands and other folks who are generating materials looking back through the supply chain, thinking of ways to become more sustainable, thinking of ways to reduce their impact on the environment, and truly the SGP program is a perfect fit for printing operations that want to get involved in sustainability. I won't run through all the numbers, but those facilities that are certified enjoy benefits from an operations perspective, as well as reducing emissions and reducing solid waste generated. When you look through these statistics, these are very impressive. When you have a significant number of the facilities involved in the program reporting reductions across air pollution, waste, increase in recycling. Basically, what that means is that in addition to reducing that environmental impact, these facilities are reducing their operating costs. Very important in terms of today's economy as well, is that to maximize basically the people, planet, profit, you maximize profits, you reduce your waste, everybody wins. It's a significant program. And then probably where this fits in terms of today's program and what Erica is going to pick up on in the next section here is that we were able to work with the DNR to ensure that if you became certified under SGP, you could easily become recognized under the DNR's Green Tier program. In fact, when we did the analysis, the two programs were very similar to each other. As an SGP certified facility, it's real easy. You have to do a few things, and you can literally become recognized under the Green Tier program. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Erica. Joe, if you want to go next slide, and she'll walk us through the Green Tier program.
Thanks, Gary, and good morning, everyone. I'm going to give you a very quick crash course on Green Tier. Green Tier is a program within the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. It's a voluntary program for forward-thinking facilities who are committed to reducing their environmental impacts, committed to continuous improvement, using an environmental management system to drive their performance. This is a program for companies who want to go above and beyond environmental requirements to improve their environmental footprint and reduce their liability and find efficiencies. Like Gary mentioned, our companies are moving the needle on air emissions, wastewater discharges, wastewater minimization, energy or water conservation, preserving habitat, and many other focus areas. I wanted to mention that Green Tier is open to all businesses of all sizes and industries. We even have a few organizations like institutions of higher education and municipal and county landfills who are also participating in the program. But primarily our program is geared to businesses and manufacturers. Some of the requirements for the program, in addition to having an environmental management system, participants are required to have the outside audit, same as SGP, at regular intervals and submit annual reports. I'll talk a little bit more about how easy that is for printers who are both in SGP and Green Tier. In Green Tier, we have 3 participation options. Tier 1 is the likely entry point for most Green Tier businesses, We also have a Tier 2 option for companies who are experienced with EMS that offers more options for regulatory flexibility. And then finally, we have the Green Tier charters, which Gary mentioned. We have a charter with a group of printers. And charters are groups that form around a shared mission or interest area. And the groups work collaboratively to achieve superior environmental performance. And we develop a charter agreement at the outset, and that contains all the commitments and responsibilities and strategies to meet all of the stated goals. So participation requirements are slightly different for each participation option, but those are the 3 options for organizations to tap into. I did want to talk a little bit more about the partnership that we have with the printers that Gary mentioned. We really value our industry partners, and we'd like to support more printers and other industry partnerships who maybe want to form around a charter and be part of an environmental management system that fosters continuous improvement. And we recognize the commitments that the printers and Green Tier participants are making through their EMS, but we think they're working more efficiently, and that results in a whole lot of benefits, including lower environmental impacts and cost savings. As I mentioned earlier, we have a really nice process in place for printers who are dual certified in both Green Tier and SGP. We want to make it as easy as possible. So we have a single reporting and auditing process for those printers who want to participate in both programs. They only have to submit 1 report, and they only have to do a single audit, and that will satisfy requirements for both programs. Next slide. Okay, so Green Tier benefits. You know, I think Gary already hit most of these, but one of the things that we really like to talk about is improved relationships, particularly with the department. We provide a primary contact for all of our participants, and that staff person at the DNR can help problem solve and talk about different opportunities across the board. So it's a really nice entree into the agency, and it's someone who can help a company navigate the department across programs. So even though a single point of contact might work for one particular program, they can help a participant in any program area. We also provide a lot of recognition for all of the great work that our participants do. And that could include, you know, social media. It absolutely includes a web page for each participant. We have a Green Tier web page housed on the DNR web page for each participant, and we post annual reports and other great news that is coming out of our organizations, as well as videos that we often produce. Companies can use our Green Tier logo that can help provide a marketing advantage. Of course, there's the productivity, enhanced productivity, you know, lower costs and risks. And I think Gary covered supply chain requirements. The other piece of this is some deferred civil enforcement opportunities. So in the Green Tier law that governs our program, the department is able to offer deferred civil enforcement for any violations that a participant finds incorrect. So we offer some of those participant or benefits. And finally, we also offer the potential for streamlined permits or modified monitoring requirements, more types of regulatory flexibility. Those are mainly available to Tier 2 participants who have the ability to negotiate these types of flexibilities with the department through a contract, which is a feature of Tier 2 participation. So that's just a quick overview. Happy to answer any questions later or offline. And at this point, I will turn the program over to Heather. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. This is just a wonderful opportunity. I've enjoyed getting to know the printing industry through some of the background that Gary shared with me in advance of this workshop. So I'm with Renew Wisconsin. Next slide, please. And we were founded in Wisconsin in 1991. We've worked for a couple decades now to advance solar, wind, biomass, and biogas, and geothermal and hydropower. But today I will focus largely on solar for your business because that's going to be the most accessible renewable energy for you now, and it's among the most affordable. Next slide, please. So why solar power in Wisconsin? The photos you see in these pictures show on the left is Dave Jones Inc. That's it's an HVAC company with over 500 employees, and they've actually installed 2 solar systems on their facility now to support their operations. And then you see a SuperValue on the right. These are major solar installations, and they are in good company. We're seeing manufacturers and businesses put solar on their rooftops because it can help them cut one of their major operating expenses, which is energy. Next slide, please. And contrary to popular belief, Wisconsin actually does have enough solar access, what we call, the opportunity to get power from the sun, to generate a significant amount of power from solar. So you can see on this map that Germany, which is colored purple and blue, has significantly less access to the sun or solar access than Wisconsin does, but they have already reached 7% solar power for powering operations in Germany, and we are still we're under 1% solar in Wisconsin. This slide is a little outdated, but we have a long way to go and a lot of solar access. Next slide, please. Okay, and the great news for you as businesses in Wisconsin, and for some of you who are from beyond Wisconsin, solar power has dropped in cost dramatically just in the last 10 years. Costs are down about 85%, which means, and the efficiency of the panels has gone up significantly. So the panels you're seeing today they're not your father's panels. They are panels that can really produce a lot of energy, and even in situations that we couldn't produce a lot of energy before. So now you can put panels facing in directions that wouldn't be efficient before, and in different positions and different levels of shading because the systems have become more efficient and really cost effective. Wind has also dropped about 66%, which is why you're seeing a lot of large wind farm development. Next slide. And the best news is that solar panels are very reliable. They come in general, many cases, with a 25-year manufacturer's warranty. So you can trust that your solar panels will function for a long time and be a useful investment for a long time. Next slide, please. So why are businesses going solar? So there are so many reasons, and I've focused in the last few moments on the costs and the benefit to your operating budget, but it also helps you address possibly future rising electricity rates. And once you reach payback, once you've paid yourself back for all the amount of money you've invested in the solar system, then you're going to be getting some free energy years into the future, which is really, really wonderful. And there are other reasons to go solar as well. A number of Fortune 500 companies have made commitments to 100% renewable energy. Some of those companies have operations in Wisconsin. And the reasons they're making these commitments and these investments in renewable energy is certainly economic, but it's also because their customers and their employees are very interested in seeing these kinds of commitments from the people they work with. And it can help attract customers, and it can help attract good employees who want to be green stewards. And there are tax credits and benefits. I will speak to those in a little bit. I'm going to go into in another moment how the equipment works, just a little bit of familiarity with how a solar system works. But I wanted to highlight for you a couple major installations that we've seen on businesses and entities in Wisconsin this year. IKEA went solar, Madison College went solar, the Oregon Ice Arena went solar. There's a downtown Milwaukee parking canopy project that was solar. Emmy Roth Cheesemakers put on a major solar installation. And if you're familiar with the vegan protein bar, Go Macro, just put a large installation on their food manufacturing facility. We have a General Beverage Distribution Center that went solar this year. And Organic Valley is going to be partnering with One Energy and the City of Madison to do a total of 10 solar arrays in Wisconsin for 26 megawatts. That's a major investment in solar. And since printers are manufacturers, I thought you might be interested to know that Faith Technologies, which is a manufacturing firm up in Appleton, is planning to build an off-grid manufacturing facility. So the technology is there. You could, depending on your level of investment, you could really power all of your work with green energy. So we're really excited about that. Okay, so the basics of a solar system. You have the sun shining on your solar panels, usually on your roof, but there are other arrangements. The power moves to the inverter, where the inverter converts the power from DC to AC. And then the power runs through your bidirectional meter so that your power can go back onto the grid. And then you have wires connecting you to the grid. So I'll touch on net metering later, but net metering allows you to help reduce your electricity costs because the utility is paying you back for the power you're generating. And one question we often get, and we want to make sure everyone's aware, your solar system with a battery can allow you to function in a blackout or a brownout, but you need a battery to be able to do that. So the system that is on this slide in front of you would actually, your system would go down if the grid goes down around you, because utilities want to ensure that their operators who are working on the lines to repair a situation where there's a blackout or a brownout, they want to make sure there's no power coming from your facility back onto the lines that could endanger the workers. So to have a system that functions when the grid goes down, you have to add a battery. So I mentioned the panels and the inverters. Panels, as I mentioned, are very sturdy, no moving parts. The snow melts off. You don't need to, actually saw someone shoveling their roof in my neighborhood yesterday. You don't need to shovel your solar panels because they warm up. They're usually at a good pitch, and then the snow slides right off within a day or two, unless there's a crazy weather storm. And the inverters are usually warranted for up to 10 years, so that might be a piece of equipment you would need to replace earlier than your solar panels. Just a couple smatterings of projects that you can see here, how solar panels can work on almost any rooftop for almost any size business. So what makes a property good for solar? We recommend that you have a roof that's generally facing south, although east and west are more and more plausible. You're going to get the most efficiency if your roof is facing south, or if you have a flat roof and the panels can be arranged to face south. The less shade, the better. You want to have a roof that is structurally sound. So if your roof needs repair, it's always best to do the roof repair before the solar installation, although we are aware of projects where the customer knew they needed to repair the roof in the near future, and so the installer was able to come up with a racking system that would allow for roof repairs underneath the system. So there's a lot of creative solutions, but ideally your roof is in good shape so that when your panels are going to last 25 years, you can just leave them on there until the end of the lifetime of those panels. And if you're a business and you can take advantage of the 30% tax credit, federal tax credit, and the accelerated depreciation, that makes your property very good for solar. And have you taken a look at your energy efficiency for your operations? If you have, and you've maximized a lot of those strategies, then solar is probably a very good option for you. And would you or your employees like to drive on sunshine? If you have any employees who have electric vehicles, or you'd like to invest in electric vehicles, adding solar and electric make a lot of sense together, electric charging stations. Net metering is it's a simple concept. Basically, as you are producing energy and you send it back to the grid and your utility, you get credits on your bill for that energy. Now, each utility has a different net metering rate and oftentimes a different cost for electricity. So the way to figure out exactly how much your potential solar system could save you is to work with your installer, and they can help you do the math. They can help you figure out how much am I paying in electricity, you know, and then how much my utility will rebate me for each kilowatt hour that I generate, and then calculate how much you would save over time. And it's really a case-by-case basis. We're going to go into the specific incentives. Go ahead and shift to the next slide. I was asked to talk a little bit about the Focus on Energy RECIP program. Now, if we were all in the same room, I'd ask you to give me a show of hands and see who is familiar with Focus on Energy RECIP. Basically, it is a wonderful funding mechanism funded through the utilities and the state of Wisconsin, which is actually offering over $5 million over the next 4 years in rebates to entities that are going solar. So there are 3 rounds of funding each year, and the first round just closed at the beginning of this month, but the second round of proposals will be due in June 2019 and then October of this year as well. This round of funding, I believe, is around $1 million in incentives. So you can learn more at focusonenergy.com/RECIP. But this is a really wonderful program, and the way to learn, your solar installer is going to be really familiar with how to access the RECIP program. So the best way to get a handle on accessing these grant programs is to get a site assessment or a couple of site assessment with solar installers, and then have them walk you through this rebate program. And you have probably heard about the federal tax credits. This year, 2019, is actually the last year to get the full 30% federal tax credit, and that is a really wonderful benefit. Next year, 2020, it ramps down to 26%, and in 2021, 22%. The commercial federal tax credit will stay in place at 10% into the future. The residential tax credit will actually disappear at 2022. So with the falling costs, the rebates, the tax credits, it is a very good time for businesses to go solar. In addition, the 2017 tax law, which I'm sure we're all wrestling with since it's coming up on tax season, actually has significant benefits for solar installations. There is an immediate tax deduction equal to 100% of the cost of the system, and this can really reduce your net costs for the project as businesses. So as you're evaluating these considerations, whether solar is right for you, think also about the cost of doing nothing. We anticipate that utility costs will rise, and without investing in solar or energy efficiency, your operating costs for energy will probably very likely continue to go up. We're seeing businesses see payback in the 5 to 8 year range. Nonprofits, which can't take advantage of all those tax rebates and incentives, have a longer payback period of 10 to 15 years. So over time, you can save a significant amount of money by installing solar. I was also asked to give you a little bit of information about financing options. So let's march through those fairly quickly. Of course, you can just pay outright if you choose to do that, if you have the savings on hand. That's very effective, and that's probably one of your more affordable ways to go. You can also pursue a loan through PACE. I'll speak to property assessed commercial energy in a moment, or through a commercial loan or a HELOC if you're doing residential solar. And let's go to the next slide, and I'll speak to community solar. So community solar, if you've heard of this before, this is local solar facilities which are shared by multiple community subscribers who receive credit on their electricity bills for the share of the power produced. It's a rapidly increasingly, this model is being increasingly adopted nationwide, and we have a community solar project here in Madison that Madison Gas and Electric, actually I'm sorry, it's located in Middleton, but Madison Gas and Electric has customers subscribed to that project. And then in 2018, on the edge of Cashton, Xcel Energy created a series of 1 megawatt arrays that will supply power to Xcel Energy's Renewable Connect program. And businesses actually can participate in these community solar projects. So that is an option. If you don't want to put solar on your rooftop, you can participate in one of these programs, and you will receive rebates on your energy bill. So residential group buys are a financing model largely for homes, but it's a growing business model. Many Wisconsin solar installers are doing residential group buys to help folks reduce the cost and help install a large number of solar on a community fairly quickly. We've had some very successful group buys in 2018. Two solar group buys targeting Sauk County and the Bayfield Ashland counties helped over 150 households and businesses adopt solar, accounting for nearly 1 megawatt of solar capacity. So it just depends on the group buy whether this is accessible to residential or commercial customers, but this might be an option for you. The City of Madison also runs group buys called Madison, which Renew Wisconsin administers. Next slide. I was asked about third-party financing, and I'd like to address that really quickly. Primarily, third-party financing right now is available to nonprofit entities. Legacy Solar Cooperative has a track record of success helping nonprofit organizations benefit from third-party financing. This image you see before you is a partnership between Legacy Solar Cooperative and Hayward-based Carson Electric, which put 133 kilowatts on 6 apartment buildings across Sawyer County that serve 52 tenants in total, and each unit receives solar electricity directly from these arrays. So that's a really great model. And solar leasing. This is the most complicated area of solar financing in Wisconsin. In other states, this is handled quite differently, but in the state of Wisconsin, there is a gray area right now on solar leasing. Solar leasing runs the risk of being interpreted as a third party serving as utility and selling power to another entity. That is actually prohibited under state law. However, in the past, some leasing projects have been approved, so it's a gray area. The article that I've got a picture of here focuses on a case with Eagle Point Solar, which was commissioned to do 5 solar projects in the city of Milwaukee on their properties through a lease from Eagle Point Solar. The utility opposed this proposal and argued that the installer was trying to serve as a utility. So they've had to recalibrate the project, and now the city of Milwaukee is simply going to purchase the solar installations outright. This will cost Milwaukee more upfront, but they will avoid the legal gray area of leasing. So let's talk about one other area of financing, both for solar and other types of energy projects. It's called PACE. PACE is Property Assessed Clean Energy. It's an innovative financial program used for financing energy efficiency and renewable energy improvements on commercial or multifamily residential property. PACE allows the property owner to finance the upfront cost of the project and then pay back the costs over time through a voluntary assessment. The assessment is attached to the property and not the property owner. So if the property is sold, the repayment obligation is transferred to the new property owner if the buyer agrees to assume the obligation. And this allows businesses to make an energy investment without worrying that, what if I move to a larger facility in 5 years? I don't want to have done a large cash outlay on a bunch of solar panels without ensuring that I can recoup that cost in a short amount of time. So what's great is that the debt for that project would be passed on to the property owner because the project really invested in the building. So what types of entities can benefit from PACE? Almost every type of entity, commercial and nonprofit entities can benefit from PACE. Anyone who owns their own building can really take advantage of it. The types of programs you might see include boilers, pumps and motors, and efficient lighting systems, heating and cooling system upgrades, building controls, building envelope improvements, hot water systems, and renewable energy systems. The green counties here are all communities in Wisconsin that are participating in Property Assessed Clean Energy. 34 Wisconsin counties, so almost half the counties in Wisconsin have already authorized this program. If your county has not authorized the program, it's a fairly simple process. They have to adopt authorizing legislation. And the reason they have to do that is because the county is actually going to assess the property and sort of takes some risk that if the property was abandoned, that the county would be responsible for the loan. So that's why it's a case-by-case basis. Each county has to adopt authorizing legislation, but that's moving forward quite quickly. So I'm looking forward to your questions, and I'm very excited that so many people have participated in this call. Renew Wisconsin is always available to answer questions about how to access renewable energy for your business, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you so much.
Well, great. Yeah, well, first of all, I just wanted to say thanks for having me, and thanks for putting some of the presentation together. My name is Matt Kopensky. I'm a National Account Manager with SunPeak. We're a commercial industrial solar developer headquartered in Madison, Wisconsin. We are currently doing projects all over the U.S., but our bread and butter is focused on the Midwest. So today I'd like to talk a little bit more about the Letterhead Press project. Dive a little bit into some of the details regarding the finances and how it was put together. So at the time it went in 2015, it was the largest system in Waukesha County. And as you can tell, and I'll touch more about this a little bit later, it was a ground-mounted system put on an unused area of their parking lot. If you could go on to the next slide, please. So project motivations. Everyone has a different motivation for going solar. And for Michael Graff, the president of Letterhead Press, the kind of two primary reasons were the economics and the energy independence. And we're in a unique situation, as Heather had touched on, nationally with solar right now, where even 10 years ago, the only people who were going solar were people who wanted to go green. The economics just didn't make sense. You'd see 20 to 30-year paybacks, and thankfully, a lot of the motivation for people now is again the economics and the energy independence. You can see the quote from Michael Graff up there. If you guys want to move on to the next slide. So some of the key considerations we look at when sizing a solar system: one, the available area. So in this particular instance, solar system's taking up about 35,000 square feet, again, of completely unused parking lot area. They had additional area available, but when we looked at their electrical demand and the local utility policy, we arrived at roughly 340 kilowatt DC system as being optimal. Now, the reason for that being, and this system's roughly a 20% offset of their annual usage. You might ask, why didn't we go up to a 50% offset of their annual usage, or even 100%? And it's the reason that Heather alluded to earlier is it's regarding the utility's net metering policy. What net metering is, it essentially says if your system is under a certain size, which varies utility by utility, anytime you end up sending energy back to the grid, so say on a Saturday when no one's in the office or machines aren't running, we'll pay you at a 1-to-1 credit for the energy that you send back to the grid. So in this case, the net metering policy of We Energies was 300 kilowatts AC. So that's how we arrived at the system size. But yeah, it certainly wasn't for lack of wanting to put more either on our end or the president's end. If you want to go on to the next slide here. So talking a little bit more in detail about the funding sources of this project. Again, this was put in 2015. So there's that 30% federal investment tax credit that Heather was discussing, but in addition, there was a 30% focus on energy grant. The remainder of the project was paid with cash, with a combination of a loan and an equity investment. And what's really cool about this, and I'll touch on this in the next slide, but we're just talking about how most of your money comes back actually in the first year, and especially depending on the financing structure that you use, you can be immediately cash flow positive from day one. And with a combination of a loan from the bank, the energy production savings can actually be greater than what your loan payments are. And as we like to say, it can really make it a no-brainer investment. If you want to go on to the next slide there. So as I talked about, a 20% annual offset of their electricity consumption. It translates to about $50,000 a year in annual savings. And again, a 6.2-year payback. Now, another cool way to think about this is with a metric that we call the levelized cost of solar energy. So in a sense, you're going to have an upfront cost associated with the system. You're going to be getting some grants and tax credits back. And then there's going to be a small operations and maintenance expense going forward through the life of the system. Now, one way to view it with this levelized cost of energy is you're essentially paying for all of that electricity up front and at a known rate. So once you take all that into account, in this particular instance, their initial blended rate was 11.1 cents. And now on 20% of their electricity consumption, we're going to be able to essentially be at a 4.9 cent per kilowatt hour rate, which is really phenomenal. If we want to go on to the next slide there, and I'll wrap it up here just on a, I think one of the coolest things about this, and again, for this particular project, it was less of a driving factor, was really just the environmental effect that this has. So if you look over the life of the system, it's going to be about 11 million kilowatt hours, and then that translates to over 18 million miles of driving, which for a solar system sitting in a parking lot, frankly, is kind of hard to fathom. And so, yeah, we're very proud to have done this project for Letterhead, and we're always available as Renew is to answer additional questions or help you evaluate whether or not solar's a good fit for your business. And with that, I'll hand it back to you guys.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate all the presenters presenting today. Certainly, they're available, and we will make that information available to you so you can follow up with them on projects that you might consider in the future. I also wanted to talk a little bit about upcoming sustainability webinars. The sponsoring organizations are going to be presenting. Our next one's going to be how environmental management systems drive sustainability savings. It's going to be on May 14th, again, 9 to 10 Central Time. The next one after that is zero landfill waste. That's going to be August 20th, 9 to 10. And then energy efficiency and compressed air efficiency. That's going to be October 15th from 9 to 10 Central. At this time, I'd like to unmute everybody. I'm going to take the risk of unmuting everybody. Oh, wait. What is the life of letterhead press system? So this is a question for Mac. Can you talk a little bit about the investment in legacy solar bonds? So we have two questions, one for Mac. What's the what's the life of letterhead press system? And then to Heather, can you talk about the legacy solar bonds?
Sure. So I can start off talking about the life of their system. So estimated useful life is 30 years. And when we say 30 years, it's really nothing magical happens in year 30. As Heather touched on before, the panels are warranted, have a manufacturer's production guarantee for 25 years. Essentially saying in year 25, it'll still be producing 81% of the electricity compared to the day that it was put in. So, you know, again, 81% in year 25, certainly don't expect the system to shut off in year 30, but 30 years is a long time. So that's kind of what we use as an operating number for businesses.
Excellent. Heather, could you talk a little about how to invest in legacy solar bonds?
Yes, I can speak just a little bit to that. So Legacy Solar Cooperative does offer solar bonds for purchase, and solar bonds fund other solar projects. So it's really an investment opportunity, sort of a green energy investment without having to do anything on your own property. Return on these bonds can be between 4% and 6% interest, which is still pretty good in this environment. And you know that it's going to be funding a solar project in the state of Wisconsin. I haven't done one of these bonds myself, but Legacy Solar Cooperative is a really strong partner with Renew Wisconsin, and we've seen a lot of their work be very successful. And you know, we work with them on a range of projects. I know that one of my colleagues actually does invest in these solar bonds and has worked with them for years, so as a personal investment. So I would encourage you to reach out to Legacy Solar Co-op, which is just legacysolarcoop.org. You can fill out, I think they have an online form where you can fill out that you would like to buy a bond. Yeah, it's a great way to fund projects and to be green without installing anything on your property.
Outstanding. I'm going to unmute everyone. If you do have any questions, please ask now.
Hey, Mac, this is Gary. I have a question regarding the return on investment for Letterhead Press in terms of if I understand it correctly, what you're saying is that the cost of the electricity from the solar system is 4.9 cents per kilowatt hour compared to 11.1 cents per kilowatt hour for the blended utility rate. So where they're saving the money is the difference in the electricity. In other words, since they're using solar, they don't have to pay for the energy rate. Correct? Is that where that ROI works?
So yeah, you're exactly right. And I think that levelized cost of energy can be a little bit of a confusing metric, but yeah, so basically over the course of a year, they're going to see a 20% reduction in their electrical consumption and their electrical spend, which translates to about a $50,000 a year annual savings in electricity.
Well, I appreciate everybody's time today and participating in the webinar, especially the presenters. I appreciate your time and efforts. Again, we're going to have a series of these webinars over the course of the next several months. And again, we'll send you a packet by email that will include the recording, information about the upcoming webinars, and then also contact information so you can follow up with each one of the presenters to talk about the issues that they presented today. Thank you, everyone, for participating.